Welcome back to the channel. Today on Minmo Bassin, we are going to have another tip video talking about crankbaits, the setups we use, the styles of crankbaits, and everything that you guys would need to start catching fish on crankbaits. I recently just got into throwing crankbaits. I'm not really throwing any deep divers, but I am starting to get more into and more kind of on key with what I like to throw and when I like to throw it. So my favorite time to throw crankbaits, usually just get a a little bit lighter action rod, maybe a little longer one. Ducket makes a really good crankbait rod, like the Silverado series or something like that. But around the time in spring where the water's just starting to heat up and you're in that 50 to 55 degree area, the Rapala DT6 in a craw color, is a Red Devil, and I'm not sure what this one is called. But these are really good baits around there. Around any brush, hitting those, getting bottom contact, having those hit into every rock, and sticking everything down there, is definitely really key around that time, the really early time of the spring. As soon as you get kind of past that 55 degree water and water's still heating up, but fish aren't quite spawning yet, they're just still feeding. They start feeding on shad because the shad start moving a lot. And that's when you can, the DT6, but in a shad color is really good, right in there. And then as soon as the water gets warmed up past then, I move back to a square bill. This is a KVD 1.5 in sexy shad. I start throwing that, when water, right before fish start bedding. And then I don't really throw it much during the actual spawn, but then post spawn into the summer, I'll throw that one. I'll also throw, a similar, just bait the exact same, but yellow with a black back. Little crankbait. If the water happens to be a little darker, I'll throw that one. But the sexy shad is definitely my favorite. And then and at that point, we're getting through summer, done throwing those, and we're moving into the fall. When water does start getting much colder, and the wiggle wart bite, the Midwest wiggle wart deals, it's huge around here. So here's one of the older ones. Here's one of the newer ones. I definitely have success with both of them. I'm kind of scared to throw the old ones, but. This is one of the old ones here. This is one I prefer in a little bit lighter colored water. Still doing that exact same thing, same rod setup, same idea, just having that bottom contact and having to hit every rock and every tree and everything that we have down there. But yeah, you do kind of want a little bit lighter, definitely lighter colored in the. If the water's a little lighter, if you get a lot of rain or something and the water does happen to get darker, I will go throw a little darker colored one, real dark back here. And, I definitely feel like the bite does get better on a darker one if the water's a little darker. With crankbaits, so another big tip, all year, especially with, in the spring though, with the throwing the DT6s around. If whenever you're bringing these crankbaits in and they're just dragging the bottom, if you ever come over, hit a rock, definitely let that pause for a minute and let that start floating up. Or if there's any time where you're just bringing it along and you feel anything, I like definitely letting that up sometimes, or hitting even here. You can maybe hit the rock harder. There's lots of little different things that you can do. A split pause. That's a good time. For a spotted bass or a largemouth to come up and just attack that. Anytime there's lots of times around. There are lots of places around Stockton and Table Rock where we're working down a cut and there's little like secondary points and secondary cuts in there. Or we can, just drag, bring those kind of like parallel to the bank, right in that, especially with the DT6, around that 5 to 6 to 7 foot area, where every rock in there we're bashing it into, and there were, those secondary points before fish are going way back in the cuts to spawn. Those secondary points is where they're feeding on crawfish and shad and everything, and that's where they are getting ready. This is a little tip. I definitely recommend stopping at every one of those points, and you're getting lots of good casts, as long a cast as you can with those, dragging that through everything you can.
And like when you have a fish on, like do you set the hook hard? Do you lean into it? What do you do?
It's really similar to a jerkbait. I lean into it. Don't just kind of half but definitely get it in its mouth, and if you pull too hard, you will they don't have the biggest super heavy hooks, less like a jig would. So you're going to want to use those rods. You have like the crankbait rods do have a little bit lighter tip, and you can while I'm bringing those back, you can to make sure you have tension to them, but you're not just ripping the ripping the hooks right out of its mouth, because there are lots of times where I have lost fish, getting to, you see them out there and you get real excited, and then, they end up getting off, a minute later because you're, being a derelict and you just let them get off. But, alrighty, so that is kind of what we do, all year round, spring, fall, summer. As soon as the wiggle worm bite does die off in the winter, the water's getting a little colder, I definitely put the crankbait box away to get ready for the next season. Start organizing everything, getting everything put in my boxes here. But that is what we have success with here with the crankbaits. Tune in for the next one. We'll definitely get some more tips out here.